Hi everyone, welcome back, and I hope you're well. Now, I've never used an airbrush before, but after some previous experience of brush painting miniatures, and now seeing what other people were able to achieve with one, I finally decided it was time to pick it up. This is the Gaahleri TurboX Mini, and today I'm going to find out whether a complete beginner can actually get usable results, or whether I'm going to make a complete mess of it. Let's roll the intro. First off, I have to say the packaging is really nice. It's very well padded inside, and the box isn't bad either. Everything inside was neatly wrapped and secure with no damage from transit. I bought this on Amazon.de direct from the Gaahleri store for €90, but you can find it on their own website too, and I'll leave a link in the description. The contents consist of a manual, the Gaahleri 39 airbrush, an airbrush holder, some spare O-rings, a screw type hose, and a power supply with a plug dependent on region, and of course the TurboX Mini itself. Okay, let's start with the Gaahleri Gaahleri 39 Advanced Series airbrush. This has been designed with beginners in mind, according to their own website. The quality feels fantastic. It's got a really nice shine to it, it feels easy to hold, very well balanced, and I can't see any issues with it. For a beginner, it looks like an airbrush, and it seems to perform like an airbrush. There's no quick detach built in, but you can easily adapt and add one if you need to, as well as a water trap, which I believe is quite recommended from a lot of people in the hobby. There is an adjustable nozzle, and also a safety cap that you can remove. I like how easy to disassemble it is, and there are plenty of videos out there for you to go and have a look. Check out Gaahlerie's YouTube videos themselves. Now for the TurboX itself. It's 14 by 10 by 6 centimeters, which is smaller than an iPhone 17 Pro Max. It has a working pressure of between 10 and 20 psi, depending on the airbrush size, and it should meet most desktop airbrushing tasks, from what I understand. You can select Celsius or Fahrenheit as the temperature, and bar or psi as the pressure units. It has a single hose pickup, and also has a switch on the back for standard or compatibility mode. Compatibility mode ensures smoother and more consistent airstream, resulting in cleaner, more controlled fine details, according to their website. Setting up couldn't be easier. You undo the hose, screw one side into the compressor, and the other side into the airbrush. Now, there are recommendations of getting quick release and also some water traps, and I'll look into those in the future. But for this, I wanted to just get started. As you can see, simple as, and you can just get started. Of course, then you have to plug it in. You can put the airbrush holder in, and don't do what I did the first time and try and turn it on without actually plugging it in. Yeah, as you can see, I had to roll away at this point. When it turns on, you get a selection of PSI or bar, so you can turn the dial to change, and you push to confirm. Then you have to push and hold the button to turn on the compressor. Remembering to move the cap, you can then test. adds a different feeling. Sorry, bad throat. So that's the low power setting. Then we have medium. And then the high power setting. I like that. So this here is the switch from standard to compatibility mode, and from what I understand, this is for when you want to use more precise airbrushes and have a more limited fluctuation in the air pressure. Honestly, I didn't touch this, I haven't been able to test it, but I will spend some time in the future once I've got a better hang of this. Okay, so setting up just as before, I have a crude setup here. Cardboard box with a filter in the back, some gloves, a spray out pot, a mask, some spoons, a cup to mix, a Vallejo grey primer, and a Vallejo Model Air black. Also have some airbrush thinner and cleaner, so I can go through it, and I've already decanted these into smaller bottles. Got plenty of paper towels just in case. So time to get the gloves on. Again, make sure you plug the extension lead in. I must admit, I was a little bit unwary. I've only put maybe half an hour into the airbrush before recording this, as you can see from the little paint splatter on the cardboard. So I'm still getting used to how it actually works. I'm still deciding what my setup will look like. So forgive me. As you can see, I accidentally set it to bar instead of PSI, so I unhooked it, restarted it so I could reselect. I'll get used to it, I think. So a quick test with some water through the airbrush just to see how it behaves. Onto a napkin. Pretty standard stuff. Making sure that there's no blockages, even though it should be brand new. Just to get a feel for the weight, how it sprays, and just get a little bit of visual representation. So now we're going to go with our first colour, and I decided to use a bit of black and work on some paint, and we're going to shape this vigorously, and I mean vigorously because it's just been sat for a while. I would suggest doing this with all your paints anyway. This seems to be the general consensus. And also make sure to wipe the top of the bottle so that you don't have any solid bits of paint going into the airbrush cup, which can cause clogs. So I decided to put some in a little cup, and then I added a few drops of airbrush thinner. This is something that is probably going to become a fine art. There are so many reference videos out there, some dedicated specifically on how to thin your paints, so I definitely recommend spending some time and experimenting with that. I know I will be. Semi-skimmed milk comes up quite a lot, but considering I don't drink it, I have no idea. So definitely do some research. And now it's time to finally get the airbrush with some paint in it. So gently pouring in, I grabbed myself a piece of paper and started to draw some lines, do some shading, and just get a feel for the trigger and try and understand at what point the paint is released, at what distance I need to be from the model or the paper to get what kind of consistency. And I started this with the lower pressure just so I could get a feel for it. Initial reaction is very positive. My face was beaming while doing this, and then it went to tongue out concentrated face. But I think black was definitely a good option to use here for the first couple of minutes, just to get a feel for it. Here's doing some shading as well. Overall, first impressions are very, very good, and I'm very looking forward to seeing what I can accomplish with this. And now we come to the bit that I was actually dreading the most, which is cleaning out the airbrush in between colours. I started by tipping everything out into an old glass and then running a mixture of IPA and water through the airbrush, tipping it all out, whisking it all around with a dry brush, and just rinsing and repeating that, doing it with the Airbrush Cleaner as well from Vallejo, just to get as much of that paint out as possible, and then did a few blasts through a blowout pot as well. I really wasn't looking forward to this because I was really worried about getting dried paint in there, but after doing it for a few times, it's actually a much easier process than I thought. I do recommend checking out the Hardener and Steamback videos. They have some really comprehensive ones on this. But overall, decent experience. And now we come to what I was taking as the real test, is priming models. I have an excess of kits that I want to go through, and I've tried rattle cans, but I also want to try priming with an airbrush. So I started with Vallejo grey primer and a few drops of airbrush thinner, mixed it with a blowback fashion rather than doing it all in a cup for a change. And I have to say the results of this were mixed. I definitely think I will be thinning them before I put them in the airbrush moving forward. Overall, priming was quite good. I managed to get some decent coverage on this container. Did a bit of testing with, how far away I need to be from the model with a fist. From what I've seen from other videos, a fist length away from the miniature while priming on a lower pressure setting is one of the ways to go. And while doing this, my face is beaming. I'm absolutely loving this. It's just so simple. I feel like a kid in China kid in a China shop. No, there's a bull in a China shop. A kid in a candy store. And I've sped this up here just because it's a long process, but I'm getting a really, really nice coverage on this, and I'm very, very impressed. Considering I've not touched it before, this was the one thing that was actually worrying me. Not the detailing, things like that. I don't plan on going into details anytime soon, but the large coverages of paint, nice and even, is really why I picked up an airbrush for now. So priming gets my seal of approval. Having said that, I went through the first cup of primer quite quickly. I didn't add as much in there as I thought I would need for the 2 wagons I had to test. So I loaded up another set, and I think I overdid the thinner on this. It came out a lot thinner in consistency, and you could see a lot of bleed or water coming out. So either I added too much or I didn't mix it. But again, this was done through the cup and a bit of blowback as it came. So the wagon came out 95% nice. There are 1 or 2 spots that I was not too happy about, but they will probably disappear with either a second light coat or just a few light coats of the base color. But overall, again, the experience was pretty good. I was definitely rushing while doing this one. Not sure why. Might have had something to do with the fact that it was 1 o'clock in the morning, I think, when I was doing this. So just finishing up here, but otherwise, again, another good experience. Now let's take a look at these results. So this is a 3D printed wagon from Iron Mink, and I think it's come out quite nicely. As I said, decent coverage. There's a little bit of spittling from where I had it left, and you can see that drop on the corner and on the buffer beam there that just didn't cover. Now we move on to colouring, and I'm using Rail Match GWR stock brown for this, and again I've done this with some Vallejo airbrush thinner in a cup to try and get that consistency, and I definitely think this came out better than the primer. Give it a good old mix, and then again straight into the airbrush. Now I slightly upped the pressure here, but still wanted to get a decent coverage, so I'm still keeping that, you know, I would say maybe half a fist away to get a coverage. And I'm doing this circular motion, which I don't know if this is the right way to do it. As I said, this was the first time I'm doing any sort of colour, but I think it came out quite nicely. The finish was quite nice. I was worried that it was too watery, had too much moisture in it because of the shine, but it really dry with a nice matte finish. You know, so asking for some sort of varnish to go on top of it. Definitely want to do a few layers. I only did one for the test, but the coverage was absolutely fantastic, and again my face was beaming with a smile on this. I can see why people like using these. They're a fantastic tool, and honestly the Gaahleri airbrush was very easy to use. I've had no issues with it so far. While doing this, I didn't have any issues with it. It was pretty much as plug and play as you can get. It was all things that I was nervous about that were causing me, not problems, but causing me hesitation in the work. Now I'm just going over with a very light coat on some bits that I missed. I'm not going over the whole thing. But overall, I'm really impressed with how this came out. So to what conclusion can I bring to the TurboX Mini and the GHAD39 airbrush? Well, I am very happy with the results after a few hours, I would say now, talking in post-production. The coverage I'm getting from standard paints, from airbrush paints, from the primer that I'm using, I've started to figure out how the thinning process goes, so I think that's just part of the learning curve, is phenomenal. I would call this a plug and play system, and honestly I can recommend this if you want to get into airbrushing as a beginner. It's an affordable price, it's easily upgradable if you want to change out the hose or if you want to get a more advanced airbrush. I haven't done any really long stints of airbrushing. I think my maximum at the moment is an hour, and it works flawlessly the entire time. I haven't done anything longer than that, so I can't comment on long sessions. But I do want to have one of those days coming up in the near future where I've got a lot of work that I want to do, and I want to spend a lot of time doing it. You know, stick some lo-fi on, stick some jazz on, and just paint. So keep an eye out for some more content coming very soon. Go ahead and check out my links in the description. I'll leave some for the creators that I referenced, to Gaahleri itself, and also some contact information for me as well. So you can check out my Instagram and Facebook. I rarely post on Facebook, but Instagram I'm trying to get better at. You can reach out to me here in conversations on YouTube as well, and I'll also leave my email address down there as well if you want to get a hold of me personally. littlewesternrailway@gmail.com. Anyway, thank you for checking out this video. If you've liked it, please leave a like. Leave your constructive comments down in the comment section below. And if you haven't already, please consider subscribing. Really helps out. I've got some lovely things that I've got planned in the future. So I hope to see you then. Take care.